My favorite part of being president of Otterbein University is being able to spend time with all of our students, faculty, staff, and alumni. The alumni especially have these magical stories of how their lives were transformed here, not just by our wonderful campus, but by the people and the relationships on this campus. And so today we get to celebrate one of those people, Joanne Stichweh. As I talk to alums, this name comes up over and over and over again as someone who touched so many students and changed so many lives that we are honored to be able to dedicate this gallery to her today. And I know the stories you will hear today are going to be an example of why her 40-year career, from a student all the way through being a faculty member at Otterbein, is such a good example of what Otterbein can do. Thank you very much.
I met Joanne in 2014 for the first time when I came to work at Otterbein to be the Museum and Galleries Director. She made quite an impression on me in that first meeting, and I've carried her with me every step of the way since then. Most people know Joanne as a modest artist and art advocate, but she also was a fierce advocate for women in many ways. She played field hockey at the collegiate level at a time when women were not allowed to enter dining halls without wearing dresses and white gloves. And as a young, untenured art professor, she was instrumental in bringing the Guerrilla Girls to Otterbein University. She told me that she was terrified and felt certain that she would lose her job, but that it was important and needed to be done. Most touching to me, though, was her respect and gratitude for former art department chair and her personal mentor, Lillian Frank. Joanne often spoke about Lillian, how her presence in the art department made it possible for her as a woman to even imagine being an artist. In Villa Altarpiece, Joanne pays homage to art history and lineage. The work shows a portrait of a female figure with an abundant offering of flowers placed in front of her. Below is a row of 7 stamps that depict famous women in history. Her mentor and inspiration, Lillian Frank, had given the stamps to Joanne, and in an act of reciprocity, Joanne honored Lillian by incorporating them into a work of art. Lillian's gift of the church house to Otterbein to become the Frank Museum of Art has made so much possible for Otterbein and the Central Ohio community. And now, Joanne's gift to the Frank Museum of Art amplifies Lillian's vision and also opportunities for Otterbein students.
The late Professor Emerita Joanne Miller Stichweh retired from the Otterbein University Department of Art and Art History in 2009. Joanne taught studio art and art history courses, including drawing, painting, and ceramics for 30 years. After receiving her degree in art from Otterbein in 1967, Joanne received a Master of Fine Arts degree from The Ohio State University. As a professional artist, Joanne was a frequent local and regional exhibitor whose work received many awards. Her paintings are included in numerous public, private, and corporate collections. Coming from a family of teachers, Joanne believes strongly in education as one of the most critical components of one's life. During the 1998-1999 academic year, Joanne received the Otterbein Teacher of the Year Award, and graduates from every decade of her service credit her with the inspiration in their lives as artists and creators. In 2002, Joanne received the Otterbein Women's Forum Bread and Roses Award for her exemplary service and support of women. Joanne's generosity could be seen not only through the time she devoted to her students and alumni and the gifts of artwork she gave to the world, but also for establishing a legacy through the creation of the Joanne M. Stichweh Fund at Otterbein. Her generous gift and legacy will ensure that Otterbein can continue to welcome exhibitions by visiting national and international artists, faculty, prominent alumni artists, and students. The fund created by Joanne will invest in Otterbein's museum and galleries, including the Leslie H. and Ethel Rose Miller Gallery, which was established in 2006 and named for Joanne's parents. The fund also honors Mrs. Lillian Frank, Joanne's mentor who generously established the Frank Museum of Art, one of Joanne's favorite places at Otterbein. It also recognizes the many others who encouraged her throughout her career and life.
My name's Kelly Reichert, and Joanne Stichweh was my mentor after I graduated from Otterbein, as well as my instructor while I was there. She was just a force of nature and just such an influence on my life and on my artwork. She was a lifelong learner and an advocate for women artists, and I'm so proud to be one of her spiritual daughters, and I'm just thrilled that she's able to be memorialized and her contribution to the college and to so many students' lives is being recognized in this way. Up until the very end, she was a lifelong learner. She was an educator and a great friend. I'm so proud that she's being memorialized with this, and the contribution that she made both to the college and so many people's lives is being recognized. She was just a friend to the students. She taught for all the right reasons, and I am a product of her critique and her tutoring and her mentoring, and I am so honored to have been part of her life.
Many of you will remember Joanne as someone who loved purple, wore a lot of scarves, and loved to garden, and loved her cats. You also know that she loved Otterbein, she loved her students, she loved the special place that Otterbein was and is. As a high school student, I visited her class on a tour and decided this is where I want to be. She's the reason that I chose to attend Otterbein. I thought at the time I could learn a lot from this lady. I didn't know how much. I took every class she offered, and we became lifelong friends. When I talk to my own students about composition, when we talk about art history, whether it's historical figures or contemporary artists, so many times I hear her voice reminding me of funny anecdotes or don't forget to include this. Just everything I do has a foundation in what I learned from Joanne at Otterbein. She taught us how to fight, how she fought her cancer for so many years. She taught me how to be a good friend, how to keep in touch, and how to share the gifts that you've been given with those that you love. She was an incredible woman.
Back when the Otterbein Art Department was moving to the College View building, they were selling a lot of things to make room for the new space. And I went down as an alum and I purchased an old church pew that opened up its bench to have some storage in it. I absolutely loved it. And as I was taking it home with me, Joanne sat me down, and just like Joanne always did, she would tell me the history of something, and in this case, the history of the bench. And I loved it even more because that was Joanne's bench when she was an art student at Otterbein. And I cannot tell you how much of a prized possession that is, not only the bench itself and the history of it, but the fact that Joanne told me and took the time to carry that oral tradition on to me would be something I will always treasure.
Hello, so my name's Katie McCormick, and I am the niece of Joanne Stichweh. Joanne Stichweh was an art professor here at Otterbein, but she was also a student, and she started her career at Otterbein because she was looking for a small liberal arts college. She was looking for a university and colleges that would support the arts, and so when she was looking, she thought Otterbein as the perfect fit for where she wanted to go for school, but also staying close. And the reason why she stayed close is she actually grew up in Columbus. So they grew up in Columbus, Joanne and my mother, Marilyn Miller Rain, who also went to Otterbein. And as a child, Joanne was always drawing and always into art. And was very passionate about color. And when she would draw things and paint things, my grandfather would say that Joanne's work was very beautiful and had lots of intricate details. And my mother, who was very much a gardener and mathematical mind, her work was just colorful. And so Joanne always had that artistic thing from the very beginning. A lot of her early art was influenced by their gardens. So they were gardeners and had a large vegetable garden, and around the vegetable garden were flowers. And so the flowers and the different varieties of flowers is what brought the different colors into Joanne's life. And they started that gardening because of a program that went to the Columbus schools, and it was looking at students and getting them to garden and enter into the state fair. And so entering the competition at the state fair is how the gardening and colors started to enter into Joanne's life. Through that, they grew not only vegetables for the family and beautiful flowers, but also they started to experiment with some of the gourds. And with the gourds, that is where my grandfather started to do the carving and the very intricate mathematical details of the gourd. And he taught that to my mother, and my mother taught that to us. Joanne took a different spin on the gourds and then would paint on the gourds and would do a lot of different painting and intricate pen work with those as well. And that kind of became a theme throughout all of it, is the intricate work that she would do was because she was a very detailed person, and she was very dedicated into her studies and wanted to make sure that she knew everything that she could. And art history was one of her favorite courses to teach because of the multiple levels of mediums that were used and just the culture and the history. And you could see that as her passion as she would accompany people onto different trips and go to different museums and share all of her knowledge that she had. And when I think of Joanne, I think of the impact that she made with her students and the connections that she made, and then she built upon those relationships. And so the relationships started in the classroom, but then extended beyond and became lifelong relationships with her students from her very first years to her very last years. She became a mentor not only in the art department, but a life mentor as well. So often through reflection, you will realize that you've learned a lot from someone during your life. And I would say that Joanne had taught us to take a risk and to do things that maybe you haven't thought of on your own, but to take that risk because often it was worth the effort and it was worth the results that had happened. And she would help open doors of opportunities to learn when you didn't even know that there was a door there. And she was masterful at finding your level of interest and your level of knowledge, and then could help you learn so much past where you were. And I've seen her do that with students, and I've heard about stories of when she went on a trip with someone to a museum and finding out what they knew and then expanding their knowledge and showing all the extra details of a painting or a piece of art that you might not have ever known from a book or just from looking at it at first. Emily, what's your favorite memory of Aunt Joanne?
My favorite memory of Aunt Joanne was when it was like a holiday and she would come over and we would talk.
Excellent. And often Emily would share her artwork with Joanne, and you could see that passion and that light come from Joanne again to talk about art and to help anybody become a sponge. And I would say definitely, Emily, you have been a sponge for the art and has taken off with that. And Joanne's art was a lot like life, and it would take on different forms. Sometimes it might have focused on a history period that she was studying, and sometimes it might focus on a medium that she was trying out and trying to work with. And often you could see in her art different things that she's either studied or that she has seen in life, and that she made that come back through with her art to share those experiences and expand. And Joanne's take on life was always learning. Throughout her retirement, she continued to read, she continued to take classes, and would sit down and have a conversation with anyone about just about anything. And she was excited to share that knowledge, but she was also excited to learn new knowledge as well. So I would say that Otterbein is better today because of Joanne, just because she taught that love for learning and that love for not only your content area, but also just that love of learning throughout life. And I would want future students at Otterbein to know this, that it's okay to push the boundaries Joanne would help you push the boundaries and to try something new. She would want the art department to say that they gave her the motivation and the foundation to lead a fulfilling life and to start those relationships small, but then to keep them for a lifelong friendship.
My name is Amy Winter Kabalowski. I'm a graduate from Otterbein 2006. My fondest memory of her would include, multiple occasions, but her art history classes were always an amazing experience. She gave so much information. And one of a great memory that I have is her studio space where we had our painting class. And it was in the Battelle building at the time, and the space was just beautiful. It was lit up and calming, and you'd walk in and it was just a great space to create art in. And one of our greatest, projects I loved was that we created these letters and numbers with black ink on vellum paper. And then she explained to us in the process of creating this art that we would lay them one on top of another to create a final piece of art that we would then paint on canvas. It was an interesting class because you took ordinary things that you didn't really think about and you created a piece of artwork from them. And then she gave us the ability and taught us how to then build our own frames for the final project. So it was a really interesting class where you learned a lot, and then also how to build a frame for your art that sometimes I think you don't even think about. Things I didn't know at the time that Joanne might have taught us or inspired us, I think looking back now, after being in touch with her recently before her passing, is to kind of see the beauty in every day, and to be able to create. When I went to see her before she passed, she actually was creating art up until the point, I think right before she passed, she had her kitchen table full of artwork. She had gourds on the table and all her art supplies. So I think creating art was a passion of hers. I know that for sure, and I think it's just showing you that you should be able to do something that you love and continue to do something that you love. Favorite memory of mine would be my recent interaction with Joanne earlier this year, where I was able to go to her home, and she brought me in and she wanted to donate her furniture pieces to our shop. My shop is located here in Uptown Westerville, Edwin Loy Home, and she took me around her home and was showing me all the pieces that she had acquired over the years, and she wanted to give them to someone that would love them and take care of them. And what we do in here is we take old furniture and we paint it using a chalk paint by Annie Slum, so it's a decorative paint. And one of her pieces that she donated was her father's typewriter table, and she was smiling when she was telling me about how she remembered her father using it. So it was a great memory to see her still seeing, the positivity of life at that point. And it was a nice reminder to kind of see that there's good in the world still. So, and also she was very excited to tell me about a new art professor at Otterbein and how she was inspired by her, and she was looking forward to going to many of her classes and sitting in and listening to her. And she was really excited about that, and she was hopeful to continue to do that. So it was a wonderful memory to be a part of. Joanne's art was, from what I remember, was bold and creative, and yet still touched on historical references. So her art was always inspiring to us art students, and I think today Otterbein can remember her for her creativity, her inspiring talents, and the way she taught her students. Some of my greatest memories are from her classes, and I'm honored to have been a part of her, teaching career. So.
To honor and remember Joanne and her impact on countless students, colleagues, and friends, Otterbein is dedicating a new gallery space in her memory. The Joanne Miller Stichweh Gallery, located adjacent to the Miller Gallery named after her parents, will be a reminder of Joanne's commitment to art and her students, her great sense of humor, and the spirit in which she inspired so many to find their creativity and purpose. We hope you'll join us in the near future to celebrate Joanne at a more formal dedication event for the Joanne Miller Stichweh Gallery once it's safe to do so. Thank you, Joanne. You will always be with us.
Greetings, I'm Nicholas Hill, former professor of art at Otterbein, and welcome to the Miller Gallery at Otterbein University. It's an exciting time to be here as we talk about the dedication of the Joanne Miller Stichweh Gallery at Otterbein. And I want to share a little bit about Joanne, as I knew her and interacted with her for 25 years. I knew Joanne's work before I knew Joanne. She had exhibited paintings around Columbus, and I had seen a number of those pieces, and I was really interested in meeting her for the first time. The paintings were dynamic, rich color, confident, fantastic paintings, very extroverted paintings. Joanne and I had an exhibition together in Columbus, not at Otterbein, and before I came to Otterbein. And there I saw more of these dynamic, extroverted paintings. And then I met Joanne. She certainly was dynamic, but extroversion wouldn't be a word I'd use to describe her. Joanne was reserved. And often, I think because of her reserve, people didn't really capture all the qualities that Joanne offered, at least until they took a class with her. Joanne was the ultimate teacher. I've never worked with anyone who had such a commitment to her students. She had a commitment, and she overcame any reticence she might have about talking in front of groups when she started a class. Joanne taught virtually everything at Otterbein. People don't know that if they didn't know her early in her career. Everything in the art department and outside the art department. Joanne taught writing classes, and she was an exceptional writer. I often would compliment her on things simply because I would have to say something about her work or about something she had said or done or written. And Joanne, of course, was very self-effacing and would not want to receive those kinds of compliments. But one day, having read something she'd written, I said, "Joanne, you're the ultimate wordsmith." And she smiled. And that smile said it all to me, that she appreciated the fact that, yes, words were important to her. People who studied with Joanne may or may not have known that she was an alumna. Joanne majored in art at Otterbein. She majored in Spanish at Otterbein. She had 2 degrees, and she came very close to earning a degree in physical education as well, which again is something people may be unaware of in terms of Joanne's background. Joanne's commitment to art, the making of art, and the exhibiting of art was central to her life. And the Miller Gallery, again where we're standing, is named for her parents, who were committed to her work, and each of them in their own way gave a great deal to the university. And again, in Joanne's self-effacing way, she was not about to have a gallery named for her, even though it was her work that really led to this gallery. So I'm especially excited today to know that there will be a gallery that has her name on it, as is appropriate for all that she's done for us.